The incident. The sleek research vessel Curiosity glided silently through the star-speckled void, its iridescent hull reflecting the distant gleam of an alien sun. Inside, Dr. Ilara Chen made her way through the ship's compact corridors, her footsteps echoing softly in the artificial gravity. She paused at a viewport, gazing out at the looming gas giant they were approaching. A swirling mass of amber and crimson clouds hiding untold secrets. "Mommy, Daddy, come quick." An excited voice echoed through the ship's comm system. "I think I found something." Ilara couldn't help but smile. Her daughter Zoe's enthusiasm was infectious, even after weeks in deep space. At just 7 years old, Zoe had already shown a keen eye for xenobiology, often spotting details that even the ship's advanced AI missed. "We're on our way, sweetheart," Ilara replied, changing course for the observation deck. Dr. Marcus Chen, Ilara's husband and fellow xenobiologist, was already there when she arrived. He stood behind Zoe, who was practically bouncing with excitement as she manipulated a holographic display. "Look," Zoe pointed to a series of anomalous readings. "The gravitational fluctuations around the moon. They're not natural, are they?" Marcus leaned in, his brow furrowed in concentration. "You're right, Zoe. These patterns, they're too regular, almost like a cloaking field," Ilara finished, a mix of excitement and apprehension in her voice. "But that's impossible. The Galactic Empire doesn't have any registered outposts in this sector." The Curiosity had been dispatched to study a newly discovered sentient species on one of the gas giant's moons. The primitive aquatic beings had just developed rudimentary tools, making them a fascinating subject for the human researchers. But now, it seemed they had stumbled upon something far more significant. "Should we notify Earth?" Marcus asked, already reaching for the long-range communicator. Ilara hesitated. "Not yet. We need more information. If there really is a cloaked Imperial facility here, we need to know why. Especially this close to a protected species." Zoe looked up at her parents, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and worry. "Are we going to investigate?" Marcus knelt beside his daughter, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We are, but we need to be very careful. This could be dangerous, Zoe. I want you to promise me you'll stay in your quarters while we take a closer look." The girl nodded solemnly, but there was a glint in her eye that both parents recognized all too well. Their daughter's curiosity often overrode her caution. As Zoe reluctantly made her way to her quarters, Ilara and Marcus prepared the Curiosity for a closer approach. They activated the ship's stealth systems, not as advanced as military-grade cloaking technology, but enough to mask their presence from most conventional sensors. The gas giant's moon loomed larger in their view screen, its icy surface pockmarked with craters and fissures. But as they drew closer, the image began to waver and distort. "There," Marcus whispered, pointing to a section of the moon's surface that seemed to ripple like water. "That has to be the entrance." Ilara nodded, her fingers dancing over the sensor controls. "I'm picking up faint energy signatures. Whatever's down there, it's big." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. A massive structure had materialized on the moon's surface, a sprawling complex of sleek metal and pulsing energy fields, and rising from its center was an Imperial patrol ship, weapons already charged. "Attention, unidentified vessel." A cold voice crackled over their comm system. "You have entered a restricted Imperial zone. Power down your systems immediately and prepare to be boarded." Marcus's hands flew over the controls, bringing the Curiosity's shields to full power. "We need to get out of here now." But before Ilara could initiate the emergency jump protocols, a blinding flash of energy erupted from the Imperial ship. The Curiosity shuddered violently, alarms screaming as systems began to fail. "Direct hit to our primary power coupling," Ilara shouted over the cacophony. "We're losing shields." In the chaos, neither of them noticed the small figure that had emerged from the living quarters. Zoe stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with terror as she watched her parents fight to save the ship. Another blast rocked the Curiosity, sending Zoe tumbling to the floor. As the smoke cleared, she saw her father sprawled motionless near the navigation console, a gash on his forehead oozing blood. "Daddy!" Zoe screamed, scrambling towards him. Ilara's head whipped around, her face a mask of shock and fear. "Zoe, what are you?" Her words were cut short as another blast struck the ship, sending a shower of sparks cascading from the ceiling. Through the view screen, Zoe could see the Imperial ship drawing closer, its weapon ports glowing with building energy. In that moment, the full weight of their situation crashed down upon her. This wasn't like the adventure stories she loved to read. This was real, and they were in terrible danger. Ilara staggered to her feet, her face streaked with soot and determination. "Zoe, listen to me carefully. We don't have much time." She limped to a panel near the rear of the bridge, her fingers flying over a complex series of controls. A section of the wall slid open, revealing the sleek, coffin-like pod. "This is an experimental stasis unit," Ilara explained hurriedly, helping Zoe into the pod. "It will keep you safe, no matter what happens." Zoe's lower lip trembled as tears began to stream down her face. "But what about you and Daddy?" Ilara managed a brave smile, though her own eyes shimmered with unused tears. "We'll be right behind you, sweetheart. I promise." She leaned in, pressing a fierce kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Remember, Zoe, you are so loved. So very loved." Before Zoe could respond, Ilara sealed the pod. The last thing the girl saw was her mother's face, a mixture of love and anguish, as the stasis field activated. Moments later, a final devastating blast tore through the Curiosity's hull. The ship broke apart, scattering debris across the moon's orbit. Among the wreckage, a single stasis pod drifted silently into the void, its precious cargo preserved in dreamless sleep. Days passed. The Imperial patrol ship had long since departed, confident in their swift elimination of the intruding vessel. They never bothered to sift through the debris, assuming no one could have survived such a brutal assault. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The Lucky Star, a human merchant vessel on a routine supply run, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Captain Yara Novak stretched in her chair, stifling a yawn as she began the standard sensor sweep of the area. "Huh, that's odd," she muttered, leaning closer to her console. "Hey, Raj, are you seeing this?" Her first mate, Raj Patel, glanced up from his own station. "What have you got, Cap?" "Some kind of debris field near that gas giant. Looks recent." Yara's fingers danced over the controls, enhancing the sensor reading. "Wait a second. I'm picking up a faint power signature. And is that a life sign?" Raj was already plotting an intercept course. "Survivors, out here, what are the odds?" As the Lucky Star drew closer to the debris field, its powerful spotlights illuminated twisted metal and shattered components. And there, amidst the destruction, a single intact pod tumbled slowly end over end. "Bring it in," Yara ordered, her voice tight with anticipation. Carefully, the ship's tractor beam locked onto the pod, gently guiding it into the cargo bay. Yara and Raj hurried down to meet it, medical kits in hand, unsure of what or who they might find. As the pod's stasis field deactivated, the hatch slid open with a hiss of escaping air. Yara peered inside, her breath catching in her throat at the sight of the small, unconscious form within. It's a child," she whispered, carefully lifting the girl from the pod. "She's alive, but barely. Raj, get us to the nearest medical station. Now." As Raj sprinted back to the bridge, Yara cradled the mysterious survivor in her arms. She brushed a lock of hair from the girl's face, noting the dried tears on her cheeks. "Don't worry, little one," Yara murmured. "You're safe now. We'll figure out what happened to you, I promise." But as the Lucky Star streaked towards the nearest human outpost, none of its crew could have imagined the galactic firestorm that this single act of kindness was about to ignite. The rescue of one small girl would soon set in motion events that would reshape the balance of power in the entire galaxy. For in saving young Zhou Chen, they had unknowingly struck the match that would light humanity's terrible, righteous fury. The opening salvo. The vast emptiness of space erupted into chaos as the first wave of human dreadnoughts dropped out of Phantom Drive near the Epsilon Eridani system, a major Imperial stronghold. The massive ships, each nearly the size of a small moon, seemed to materialize out of nowhere, their sleek hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. Aboard the flagship Nemesis, Admiral Helena Chen stood at the command center, her steely gaze fixed on the holographic display of the battlefield. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, the product of years of secret drills and simulations. Status report, Helena commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Commander Paddle responded promptly. All ships accounted for, Admiral. Imperial defense grid is still powering up. They were caught completely off guard. A grim smile touched Helena's lips. Good. Commence operation, Shattered Sky. Across the human fleet, weapon systems that defied conventional understanding of physics came to life. Gravitational lenses bent space itself, creating corridors of distorted reality through which impossibly accurate weapon fire could travel. Quantum-entangled missiles split into thousands of smaller projectiles, each one capable of bypassing shields as if they didn't exist. The Imperial Defense Fleet, caught in the middle of their standard patrol patterns, didn't stand a chance. Ships that had been the pride of the Empire for centuries were reduced to scattered atoms in a matter of minutes. On the surface of Epsilon Eridani IV, the primary inhabited world in the system, panic spread like wildfire. The planet's defensive shields, long thought impenetrable, flickered and died under the onslaught of focused gravitational waves from the human fleet. Helena watched the destruction dispassionately, years of military discipline keeping her emotions in check. This was not about vengeance, she reminded herself. This was about securing a future where no other family would suffer as hers had. Admiral, a young lieutenant called out, her voice tinged with excitement. We're receiving a transmission from the planetary governor. They're offering their unconditional surrender. A ripple of surprised murmurs ran through the bridge. The Empire was not known for surrendering, especially not this quickly. Helena considered for a moment before nodding. Accept their surrender. Inform them that any act of resistance will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. As the human forces began the process of securing the Epsilon Eridani system, news of the devastating defeat spread through the Empire at faster-than-light speeds. Panic gripped the Imperial core worlds as the true extent of the human technological advantage became clear. In the Imperial Palace on Arcturus Prime, Emperor Zorn XVI raged at his military advisors. "How is this possible?" he roared, his face purpling with fury. "You assured me the humans were a minor annoyance at best." Grand Admiral Vex, the highest-ranking military officer in the Empire, struggled to maintain his composure. "Your Majesty, we were deceived. The humans have technology we've never seen before. Our intelligence reports were completely wrong." Zorn's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Fix this, Vex. I don't care what it takes. Throw every ship we have at them if you must, but stop their advance." As the Grand Admiral hurried away to implement the Emperor's orders, a quiet voice spoke up from the shadows of the throne room. "Perhaps, Your Majesty, we should consider a more diplomatic approach." Emperor Zorn turned to face the speaker, his most trusted advisor, Lady Serena of House Draconis. Her emerald eyes glittered with intelligence as she stepped into the light. "Diplomacy," Zorn scoffed. "With these savages who dare to attack us?" Serena inclined her head respectfully. "Consider, Your Majesty, that we struck the first blow. Our patrol ship fired on their civilian vessel without provocation. In their eyes, this war is justified." The Emperor's rage faltered for a moment as he considered her words. "What would you suggest?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "Let me reach out to them," Serena proposed. "Perhaps we can negotiate a ceasefire before this conflict escalates further. We may have underestimated the humans, but they are not unreasonable. They value peace. It's why they hid their true strength for so long." Zorn nodded slowly, the weight of the situation finally sinking in. "Do it," he commanded, "but make it clear that the Empire does not beg. We are willing to discuss terms, but we will not surrender." As Lady Serena left to craft a message to the human leadership, the war continued to rage across the fringes of Imperial space. Human forces, moving with a speed and coordination that seemed impossible, struck at key military installations and shipyards. Back aboard the Nemesis, now in orbit around the captured world of Epsilon Eridani IV, Admiral Helena Chen received word of the Imperial peace overture. "They want to talk?" she asked, incredulity clear in her voice. Commander Patel nodded, reading from the transmission. "They're proposing a ceasefire and diplomatic negotiations to resolve the conflict." Helena's first instinct was to refuse outright. The memory of her family's ship being destroyed, of Zoe's tiny body in the stasis pod, was still raw. But decades of military service had taught her the value of strategic thinking over emotional reactions. "Inform Earth Central of the proposal," she ordered after a moment's contemplation. "But make it clear that my recommendation is to continue our advance. We can negotiate from a position of strength." As the message was relayed back to Earth, Helena turned her attention to the ongoing operations. The invasion of Imperial space was proceeding even more smoothly than their most optimistic projections had predicted. But she knew better than to become overconfident. "What's the status of Operation Ghost Wind?" she asked, referring to the covert deployment of human special forces throughout enemy territory. A holographic display sprang to life, showing hundreds of small indicators scattered across Imperial space. Commander Petal reported, "Teams are in place on 87% of target worlds, Admiral. They're ready to begin Phase 2 on your command." Helena nodded, a fierce pride welling up inside her. These men and women, Earth's finest, had been inserting themselves into key positions throughout the Empire for years, patiently waiting for this moment. "Give the order," she said. "It's time to show the Empire that this war isn't just about ships and weapons. We're fighting for the hearts and minds of every being they've oppressed." As the command was relayed, Helena allowed herself a small smile. Across the Empire, carefully planted agents began to act. Imperial communications networks were subverted, spreading the truth about the conflict and the Empire's long history of atrocities. Weapons caches were unlocked, arming resistance movements that had long simmered beneath the surface of Imperial rule. The war was entering a new phase, one that would challenge the very foundations of the Galactic Empire. And humanity, hidden no longer, was leading the charge. In a secure medical facility on Earth, young Zhou Chen's eyes fluttered open for the first time since her rescue. As the doctors rushed to assess her condition, none of them noticed the brief flash of otherworldly comprehension that passed through her gaze, a sign that the universe itself had taken notice of humanity's rise, and that greater changes were yet to come. The Empire's reckoning. The Imperial Palace on Arcturus Prime, once a beacon of unassailable power, now thrummed with an undercurrent of fear. In the Grand Strategy Chamber, Emperor Zorn XVI sat upon his obsidian throne, his face a mask of barely contained rage as he surveyed his assembled advisors and military leaders. "Well," he snarled, his voice echoing in the cavernous room, "will someone please explain to me how a species we considered barely more than savages is now pushing us back on every front?" Grand Admiral Vex stepped forward, his usual confidence notably diminished. "Your Majesty, the humans, their technology is unlike anything we've ever encountered. Our fleets are being decimated by weapons that seem to defy the laws of physics themselves." A holographic display sprang to life in the center of the chamber, showing the current state of the conflict. Vast swathes of what was once Imperial space now glowed with the blue of human control. Lady Serena of House Draconis, her emerald eyes sharp with intelligence, spoke up. "It's not just their military might, Your Majesty. We're receiving reports of uprisings on dozens of worlds. Somehow, the humans have managed to arm and coordinate rebel factions across our territory." Emperor Zorn's fist came down hard on the arm of his throne. "Impossible. Our intelligence networks have been compromised," interrupted a new voice. All heads turned to see Dr. Jen Lu, Chief of Imperial Science, entering the chamber. The slight, unassuming man seemed out of place among the opulently dressed nobility, but the respect with which others regarded him was palpable. Dr. Lu approached the holographic display, manipulating it with practiced ease. "My lords and ladies, what we're facing is not just a military defeat. It's a fundamental shift in the balance of power in the galaxy." The display changed, showing schematics of human technology that seemed to border on the magical. "For centuries, we believed we were at the pinnacle of scientific achievement. We were wrong. The humans have not only matched our level of advancement, they've surpassed it in ways we're only beginning to understand." A murmur of disbelief ran through the assembled leaders. Emperor Zorn leaned forward, his anger momentarily replaced by curiosity. "Explain, Dr. Lu." The scientist nodded, bringing up images of human ships phasing through solid matter, weapons that bent gravity itself, and communication systems that seemed to operate instantaneously across vast distances. Their phantom drives allow them to travel faster than light without entering hyperspace, making them virtually undetectable. Their gravitational weapons can tear our ships apart at the atomic level, and their quantum-entangled communication arrays. They're coordinating their entire war effort without a moment's delay, no matter the distance. The implications hung heavy in the air. The Empire, long accustomed to technological superiority, now found itself hopelessly outmatched. Lady Serena stepped forward, her voice calm but urgent. "Your Majesty, we must sue for peace. Every moment we continue this war, we lose more ships, more worlds, more lives." Emperor Zorn's face darkened. "You would have us surrender? Bow before these upstart apes?" "Not surrender, Your Majesty," Serena countered smoothly. "Negotiate. The humans have shown a willingness to accept surrenders on individual worlds. Perhaps we can salvage something from this conflict before it's too late." As the Emperor considered her words, alarm suddenly blared throughout the palace. Grand Admiral Vex rushed to a communications panel, his face paling as he received the report. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice shaking, "a human fleet has just appeared in orbit. They're demanding your immediate surrender." The chamber erupted into chaos. Some nobles called for immediate capitulation, while others demanded they fight to the last. Emperor Zorn rose from his throne, his voice cutting through the din like a whip crack. "Enough. We are the Galactic Empire. We have ruled the stars for 1,000 years. We will not bow to these primitives, no matter what tricks they've learned." But even as he spoke, the palace shuddered under the impact of precision strikes from orbit. The Emperor's words died in his throat as he watched his impregnable fortress crumble around him. In that moment of stunned silence, a new voice spoke, not from within the chamber, but seemingly from the air itself. "Emperor Zorn XVI of the Galactic Empire, I am Admiral Helena Chen of Earth. Your reign of tyranny ends today." A hologram materialized in the center of the room, a woman in a crisp military uniform, her eyes blazing with a cold fury that made even the Emperor take a step back. "You attacked a civilian research vessel," Helena continued, her voice laden with controlled rage. "You murdered innocents, including my wife and daughter. And we have discovered this was not an isolated incident. For centuries, your empire has committed atrocities across the galaxy, all in the name of your supposed superiority." The hologram expanded, showing images of imperial war crimes, secret weapons facilities, and the suppression of countless species. Many in the chamber recoiled, seeing for the first time the true face of the regime they served. "Humanity hid its strength because we valued peace," Helena declared. "We wanted to explore the stars, to learn and grow. But you mistook our restraint for weakness. That ends now." Emperor Zorn, his composure finally breaking, stepped towards the hologram. "What do you want?" he demanded, a quaver in his voice betraying his fear. Helena's eyes bored into him. Justice, accountability, and a new order for the galaxy, one built on cooperation and mutual respect, not domination and fear. She turned her gaze to the assembled Imperial leadership. "You have a choice. Surrender now, agree to stand trial for your crimes, and work with us to transition to a more just system of governance, or resist and be swept aside by the tide of history." As if to punctuate her words, another series of explosions rocked the palace. Through the chamber's vast windows, those assembled could see human ships descending from the sky, their advanced technology making a mockery of Arcturus Prime's once vaunted defenses. In that moment, the mighty Galactic Empire, which had stood for 1,000 years, which had thought itself the pinnacle of civilization, faced its reckoning. The choices made in the next few moments would shape the fate of countless worlds and trillions of sentient beings. Dr. Liu, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear, stepped closer to Helena's hologram. "Your technology, it's extraordinary. How did you manage to hide all this?" A hint of a smile touched Helena's lips. "We learned from history, Doctor. Every great power falls when it becomes complacent, when it believes it has nothing left to learn. Humanity never stopped pushing boundaries, never stopped imagining what could be possible." Her gaze swept the room once more. "And now we offer that spirit of innovation and exploration to the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as partners. The question is, are you willing to take the first step into a new era?" As the Imperial leaders looked at one another, the weight of the decision before them palpable, a young voice suddenly rang out from beyond the chamber. "Mom." Helena's hologram turned, her stern expression melting into one of shock and joy. There, being led into the chamber by a group of human soldiers, was Zoe. Awake, alert, and somehow radiating an aura of power that made everyone in the room catch their breath. The Empire's reckoning had arrived, and with it the dawn of a new age for the galaxy, one that would be shaped by humanity's rise and the unprecedented power now awakening in one small, remarkable child. Battle of Nexus Prime. The Nexus Prime system hung in space like a glittering jewel, its vast shipyards and defensive installations a testament to the Empire's once unassailable power. Now, it stood as the last bastion of Imperial resistance, a final desperate grasp at glory by those who refused to accept the new galactic order. Aboard the Human Federation flagship Prometheus, Admiral Helena Chen stood at the command center, her eyes fixed on the holographic display of the upcoming battlefield. Beside her, looking simultaneously out of place and perfectly at home, stood her daughter Zoe. In the weeks since her miraculous recovery and equally astounding appearance on Arcturus Prime, Zoe had undergone a transformation that defied conventional understanding. Now 10 years old, she carried herself with a preternatural grace, her eyes shimmering with knowledge far beyond her years. "They're afraid," Zoe said softly, her small hand reaching out to touch the holographic representation of the Imperial fleet. Helena nodded, a mix of pride and concern washing over her as she regarded her daughter. "Fear makes beings dangerous, Zoe. That's why this battle is so crucial. We need to end this decisively, but with as little bloodshed as possible." Commander Ravi Patil approached, his normally stoic expression tinged with excitement. "Admiral, all ships report ready. The Phantom drive synchronization is complete. We can initiate the jump on your command." Helena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. This battle would determine the future of the galaxy. She turned to her daughter. "Zoe, are you sure about this?" "You don't have to." Zoe's eyes met her mother's, a smile playing on her lips. "I'm sure, Mom. This is why I survived. Why I changed. I can feel it." With a nod, Helena turned back to the command center. "All ships, prepare for Phantom Jump. Operation Shattered Skies, go." Across the Human Federation fleet, Thousands of ships, from nimble frigates to city-sized dreadnoughts, engaged their phantom drives. In an instant, they vanished from their staging area, only to reappear moments later in a perfect formation surrounding Nexus Prime. The Imperial fleet, caught completely off guard by the sudden appearance of the human armada, scrambled to respond. But even as they brought their weapons to bear, the true nature of humanity's attack became clear. Zoe stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the bustling command center. She raised her hands, and a strange, shimmering energy began to emanate from her. Across the battlefield, human ships began to glow with the same ethereal light. "By the stars," Commander Patel whispered, awe evident in his voice. "It's working." The human fleet, guided by Zoe's unprecedented abilities, moved in perfect synchronization. Ships phased through enemy fire as if it wasn't there, while their own weapons struck with unerring precision. It was more than just advanced technology. It was as if the human fleet had become a single organism, guided by a consciousness that could perceive and react to events faster than thought. On the Imperial flagship Immortal Dominion, Grand Admiral Vex watched in horror as his carefully laid plans crumbled in the face of this impossible assault. "This can't be happening," he muttered, his composure finally breaking. "No technology can do this. It's magic," offered a voice from behind him. Vex turned to see Lady Serena, her emerald eyes gleaming with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Perhaps, Admiral, we've finally encountered something that surpasses both our science and our understanding." Before Vex could respond, the ship rocked violently. Warning klaxons blared as systems began to fail across the Imperial fleet. But strangely, there was no massive loss of life. Human weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling rather than destroying, neutralizing the Imperial forces with minimal casualties. Back on the Prometheus, Helena watched the battle unfold with a mixture of awe and concern. Her tactical mind marveled at the perfection of the assault, but her maternal instincts screamed at the sight of her daughter, glowing with power, orchestrating this impossible feat. Suddenly, Zoe's eyes snapped open, glowing with an inner light. "Mom," she said, her voice overlaid with an otherworldly resonance, "I can end this. Now. Without any more death." Helena hesitated for a split second, years of military training warring with her trust in her child. Finally, she nodded. "Do it." Zoe smiled, then closed her eyes in concentration. The ethereal glow surrounding her intensified, spreading out to envelop the entire human fleet. For a moment, everything seemed to hang in perfect stillness. Then, reality itself seemed to ripple. Across the battlefield, Imperial ships suddenly found themselves powerless, their weapons and engines disabled by a force they couldn't begin to comprehend. In the same instant, the commanding officers of each vessel experienced a moment of perfect clarity, understanding the full scope of the conflict, the reasons behind it, and the futility of further resistance. On the Immortal Dominion, Grand Admiral Vex blinked in confusion, his hand frozen above the button that would have triggered the fleet's self-destruct sequence. The weight of his actions, not just in this battle, but throughout his entire career, came crashing down upon him. With trembling fingers, he opened a channel to the human flagship. "This is Grand Admiral Vex of the Imperial fleet. We surrender, unconditionally." As the words left his mouth, a visible wave of relief washed over the Imperial ships. Crews who had been prepared to fight to the death now found themselves freed from the weight of propaganda and blind loyalty that had driven them for so long. On the Prometheus, Zoe slowly lowered her hands, the glow fading from her body. She turned to her mother, a tired but triumphant smile on her face. "It's done," she said, before collapsing into Helena's arms. As medical teams rushed to attend to Zoe, Helena cradled her daughter, tears of joy and relief streaming down her face. The battle, no, the war, was over, and it had been won not through overwhelming firepower, but through understanding, through a connection that transcended ordinary human capabilities. In the days that followed, The true magnitude of what had occurred at Nexus Prime became clear. It wasn't just a military victory. It was a fundamental shift in the very fabric of galactic civilization. The power Zo had channeled had done more than win a battle. It had opened the minds of countless beings across the galaxy. Imperial worlds that had been prepared to resist to the last now welcomed human peacekeepers with open arms. Long-suppressed knowledge and technologies began to emerge as the stranglehold of Imperial control loosened. And perhaps most significantly, beings across the galaxy began to display abilities similar to Zo's, latent potential awakened by her actions. As Helena stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching the cleanup and reconstruction efforts at Nexus Prime, she felt a presence beside her. Dr. Zhen Lu, the former Imperial scientist, now a key figure in the Joint Human-Alien Scientific Council, joined her at the window. "Remarkable, isn't it?" he said, gesturing at the scene before them. "A week ago, I would have said this was impossible. Now I believe anything is possible." Helena nodded, thinking of Zo, who was even now working with a team of human and alien scientists to understand and develop her abilities. "We've entered a new era, Doctor. One that's going to require new ways of thinking, new forms of governance." Lu smiled, a twinkle in his eye. "Indeed, and humanity, it seems, will be leading the way. You've done more than defeat an empire, Admiral Chen. You've ushered in a new age of galactic enlightenment." As if to underscore his words, a group of ships emerged from Phantom Drive nearby. A delegation from a distant sector of the galaxy, drawn by the events at Nexus Prime. Their designs were like nothing either Helena or Lu had ever seen before. The battle of Nexus Prime was over, but humanity's journey, it seemed, was just beginning. A new galactic order. 5 years had passed since the battle of Nexus Prime, and the galaxy was a changed place. The gleaming spires of New Geneva, Earth's capital, now played host to representatives from thousands of worlds. Today, the newly constructed Galactic Assembly Hall buzzed with anticipation as delegates gathered for a historic session. Admiral Helena Chen, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, stood at the entrance of the vast chamber. Her uniform, once a symbol of human military might, had been redesigned to represent her new role as a peacekeeper and diplomat. "Nervous?" asked a familiar voice. Helena turned to see her daughter, Zo, now a poised young woman of 15. Gone was the frightened child rescued from a stasis pod. In her place stood a being of extraordinary power and wisdom, revered across the galaxy as the Awakener. Helena smiled, placing a hand on Zo's shoulder. "A little. It's not every day you ratify a constitution for an entire galaxy." As they entered the chamber, conversations hushed. The assembled delegates, a kaleidoscope of species from across the known universe, watched with a mixture of awe and respect as mother and daughter made their way to the central podium. Helena's voice, amplified by advanced acoustics, rang out clear and strong. "Delegates of the Galactic Assembly, honored guests, today we stand on the precipice of a new era." The holographic displays around the chamber sprang to life, showing images of the galaxy, not as it was divided under Imperial rule, but as a vibrant, interconnected web of civilizations. 5 years ago, humanity emerged from hiding to challenge an oppressive regime. We fought not just with advanced technology, but with a vision of a galaxy united in peace and mutual understanding. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. Many of them had experienced firsthand the awakening of latent abilities following Zo's actions at Nexus Prime. "The fall of the Empire could have led to chaos," Helena continued. "Instead, it has given birth to something extraordinary. Species that once fought one another now work together. Worlds that were exploited are being restored. And the barriers between science and what some call magic are being torn down, ushering in advancements that would have been unimaginable a decade ago." She gestured to the document displayed prominently before her, the Galactic Constitution, the result of years of negotiation and collaboration between hundreds of species. "This Constitution enshrines the principles that will guide us into the future. Equality for all sentient beings, the right of self-determination for every world, a commitment to shared scientific and spiritual advancement, and a defensive force drawn from all member worlds, dedicated to protecting the peace we fought so hard to achieve. As Helena spoke, Zoe closed her eyes, extending her senses across the vast chamber. She felt the hopes, fears, and aspirations of every being present. More than that, she sensed the trillions of lives across the galaxy that would be affected by what transpired here today. When Zoe opened her eyes, they shimmered with an inner light that had become familiar to many. She stepped forward, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that captured the attention of all present. "What we do here today is more than signing a document," Zoe said. "It's a commitment to a new way of existence. The power that awakened in me at Nexus Prime, the abilities that many of you have since discovered in yourselves, these are not weapons to be used for dominance. They're tools for understanding, for bridging the gaps between us." She raised her hand, and the air above the assembly shimmered. Gasps of wonder echoed through the chamber as a vision appeared, not of the galaxy as it was, but as it could be. Thriving worlds, advanced civilizations living in harmony with nature, the mysteries of the universe unfolding before a united galactic community. "This is our potential," Zoe continued, her voice filled with passion. "Not just as individual species, but as a galactic family. The choice we make today will ripple across time and space, shaping the destiny of countless generations to come." As the vision faded, there was a moment of profound silence. Then, one by one, delegates began to stand. It started with Dr. Jen Liu, the former Imperial scientist who had become one of the leading advocates for galactic cooperation. Then Lady Serena, who had helped negotiate the Empire's surrender and now represented a coalition of former Imperial worlds. Soon, the entire assembly was on its feet. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and evolutionary backgrounds, united in a shared vision of the future. Helena felt a lump in her throat as she watched. This was so much more than she had ever imagined when she first led the human fleet into battle. This wasn't just victory, it was transcendence. With a nod to Zoe, Helena spoke again. "Then let it be recorded. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Assembly, the Constitution of the United Galactic Alliance is hereby ratified. From this day forward, we move into the future not as separate species, but as a united galactic civilization." The chamber erupted in cheers, the sound of hundreds of different species celebrating in their own ways, blending into a symphony of joy and hope. As the formal proceedings concluded, Helena found herself approached by a small group of beings. She recognized them as representatives from the mysterious delegation that had arrived just after the Battle of Nexus Prime. The leader, a being of swirling energy contained within a vaguely humanoid form, spoke in a voice that seemed to bypass spoken language entirely. "Admiral Chen, Awakener Zoe, we have watched your progress with great interest. We believe you are now ready." Zoe stepped forward, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Ready for what? The energy being's form rippled in what might have been a smile. "To join the greater galactic community. Your United Galactic Alliance is a wonderful beginning, but it is just that, a beginning. There are wonders beyond your current understanding, civilizations that have evolved beyond physical form, layers of reality that you have only begun to glimpse." Helena felt a familiar mix of thrill and trepidation, the same feeling she had experienced when humanity first emerged from hiding. "Are you saying there's a super-galactic civilization out there?" "Not just one," the being replied. "Many, interconnected, ever-evolving, exploring levels of existence your greatest scientists have yet to theorize. And now, thanks to the choices you've made and the path you've walked, you're ready to take your place among them." As if on cue, the walls of the Galactic Assembly Hall seemed to melt away, revealing a vista of unimaginable beauty and complexity. Galaxies swirled in patterns that hinted at a deeper, underlying order to the cosmos. Beings of pure thought and energy danced among the stars. And through it all, a sense of infinite potential, of a journey that was only just beginning. Zoe reached out and took her mother's hand, squeezing it gently. Helena looked at her daughter, seeing in her eyes the same mix of determination and wonder that had driven humanity to the stars in the first place. "Well," Helena said, a smile playing on her lips, "I guess we have some catching up to do." As the assembled delegates of the newly formed United Galactic Alliance looked on in awe, humanity prepared to take its next great leap. The battle against the Empire had been won. The challenges of uniting a galaxy had been met, and now, a new chapter in the epic story of human determination and ingenuity was about to unfold. The universe, it seemed, was even bigger and more wondrous than they had ever imagined. And humanity, having proven its worth among the stars, was ready to rise to whatever challenges awaited them in the vast, infinite cosmos.